MMM. MMMMMM. Sure, yep. And projector is go.
Alright, so we're back with another Introducing Friends to Warhammer 40k, and this one is very, very, very much well requested, I gotta tell you. And joining me tonight is, as always, James, Griever 2112, and Chelsea, the Starrgal. How are you guys doing?
I'm good.
I'm
Looking forward to
excited.
this one.
I'm very excited.
Well, let's just say that this one is definitely much requested for a very good reason, and I think that it also goes without saying that Chelsea and I are both very much well acquainted with the series. James, however, not so much. This is going to be a fun little experience for him, I think.
I think the most, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the most you've seen, quote unquote, seen, is me and George quoting this.
Yeah. And like the one or two, maybe like 100 or so clips that you've like sent via Discord or text message or anything like that. So yeah, I'm basically going into this blind. It's like everything.
Yay.
That's good. That's good. The whole
I'm
point
so
of-
excited. You're going to enjoy this.
Yeah, and the whole point of this whole thing is just to introduce you to everything that the Warhammer 40k community has put together, and it would be remiss of me to... Is that the right word? Remiss?
Yeah.
Okay, it would be remiss of me to not introduce, if the Emperor had a text-to-speech device. So we're just going to go ahead and jump in. We're going to be going through the playlist, so let me go ahead and cue that up.
It is the 41st millennium. For more than 100 centuries, the Emperor of Mankind has sat immobile on the golden throne of Earth. He is the master of mankind by the will of the gods, and master of 1,000,000 worlds by the might of his inexhaustible armies. He is a rotting carcass, writhing invisibly with power from the dark age of technology. He is the carrion lord of the vast imperium of man, for whom 1,000 souls are sacrificed every day, so that he may never truly die. Yet even in his deathless state, the Emperor continues his eternal vigilance. Mighty battle fleets cross the demon-infested miasma of the warp, the only route between distant stars, their way lit by the Astronomicon, the psychic manifestation of the Emperor's will. Vast armies give battle in his name on uncounted worlds. Greatest among his soldiers are the Adeptus Astartes, the Space Marines, bioengineered super warriors. Their comrades in arms are Legion, the Imperial Guard and countless planetary defense forces, the ever-vigilant Inquisition and the tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus, to name only a few. But for all their multitudes, they are barely enough to hold off the ever-present threat to humanity from aliens, heretics, mutants, and far, far worse. To be a man in such times is to be one amongst untold billions. It is to live in the cruelest and most bloody regime imaginable. These are the tales of those times. Forget the power of technology and science, for so much has been forgotten, never to be relearned. Forget the promise of progress and understanding, For in the grim, dark future, there is only war. There is no peace amongst the stars, only an eternity of carnage and slaughter, and the laughter of thirsting gods.
Can I point something out that made me pause pretty early on in that video?
Yeah, sure.
In the beginning, it said the Emperor of Man was chosen by the gods.
Yeah.
And I just imagined the four of them sitting together. So who are we gonna pick to rule these fools? I'm assuming prior to that. Actually, you know what? Would this be prior to them all going down the path of the negative side of the things that we rule give us more power, or after? Because if they were like actually trying to seek balance and everything, I can imagine them. Who can we choose to give all this power to that will help lead this race of humans throughout the galaxy? On the flip side of things, if they were already evil, who can we choose to lead these humans to a path of devastation and depression and misery for the rest of their existence? This guy!
I think that was more of a choice on the scriptwriter for this video in particular. The whole chosen by the gods thing, I think that was also probably derived arguably from Lorgar's book, the Lectitio Divinitatis or something, where he was trying to contemplate upon the Emperor's divinity and what gave him that much power in the first place. So I think that's probably what that's in reference to.
Probably. Yeah. I just like being an ass and thinking about the four of them getting together to try to decide a ruler for humanity.
Shit, I can actually see them doing that. That's... that's a painful thing to think about, especially since he's trying to actively go to war against them.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that this video is definitely a nice summation of what the Warhammer 40k universe is, realistically. To be perfectly frank, it really is just a regime of constant carnage, bloodshed, and just violations of human rights, because there are just so many people. You're just one in many.
Yep, that sounds about right.
Yeah, it's a depressing place, but at the same time, there's also hope that because you're one in untold billions, there may be odds that you never have to deal with that kind of horrible fate.
Hey.
Well, it's a very slim chance.
Slim, but it's there. I mean, sure, you have to be a highborn to be guaranteed that, but when's life ever a guarantee for anyone, really?
Hope is all but dead in the 40k universe.
Yeah, just about. What do you think, Griever? I should say.
The only thing I'm thinking of right now is, after go back and forth, is I think the only other thing that you have shown me, which is that poor guy being like scolded for putting the rat meat on his rations.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
It's just like, yeah, that's where everything is now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's 40k as a whole, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's kind of a depressing start, given that this is supposed to be a comedy series. Now that I really stop and think about it.
But it cheers up really quickly.
Does it though? Because honestly,
well, okay.
Oh, no, I have yet to still see it, so I think I should be the judge of that. So
maybe not necessarily cheers up, but Bravo Alpha Busa presents it in such a wonderful way that you can't help but enjoy it.
Yeah. I think that's a good jumping off point, so that way we can get to episode 1. So let me go ahead and cue that up next.
I really do hope this works. Is everything prepared?
The text-to-speech device has been implemented, Custodian. It appears to be functioning properly, unlike your feeble flesh.
Most excellent.
Mechanicus.
Shut up, Mechanicus. He's better than you are.
Subjects once more, and I shall be the first to speak with him. Oh, I could just take off my... No. Calm down. I restrained myself a millennia. I will not let this legendary moment be ruined.
Why on those that you promised us?
Quiet you.
Okay, I have to say this right off the bat. And this is in no way meant to be an insult in any way, shape, or form, so please, God, forgive me. Watching this, and after watching the last few things, it's like
About fucking
watching, like, Avengers and then
Right.
Star Wars.
Yeah, it's definitely a distinct difference. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a complete difference, but it. Part of this are like caricatures of actual characters in Warhammer, but a lot of it sticks to the canon. It's just presented in a more lighthearted way.
Yeah.
Which, that's why I said, I am not meaning in any way, shape, or form to be like shitting on like, oh, this animation quality sucks or anything like that. No, I'm just saying it's like, just love like differences between all of the fan works that no matter what, it's gonna be good.
Mm-hmm.
So far, all of it has been fucking great.
Right.
And
Yeah.
just seeing like Stardies and Death of Hope, it's just like, oh my god. And then seeing this, I'm like, okay, this is cool.
Yeah, it definitely is.
But it works really well.
Mm-hmm.
It does.
Okay. I'm gonna
Sorry.
give it- No, it's all good.
You're fine.
All right, let's go.
Well, my divine lord, we have managed to implement a text-to-speech device to your glorious golden throne. Please, speak to us.
About fucking time. I have so many things to complain about. First of all, why do I only have a fucking glass eye on one of my eyes? Is that really necessary? And what is with these ultra smirts that I keep hearing about?
I love how thrown the Custodes is.
Referring to the Ultramarines? Oh my lord, they are some of your greatest warriors.
Well, that certainly fucking explains it. It seems like their baby blue heraldry have earned them a most righteous nickname. For that matter, I always thought they looked terrible.
Aw.
Do they still have bad fucking toilet seat as their insignia? Oh, well, alright then. I always thought he was the greatest of my 20 Primarch sons.
Well, that's excellent, my
The
lord.
greatest little derivative pile of blueberry pudding pop fuckery that has ever graced the surface of this shitty little galaxy.
He was almost killed. He's currently in status of the Ultramarines' home world of a crowd.
Cut his life supports and tell that stupid fucking slurp village to fuck right off. Their constant uninterrupted chatting is drilling into my skull as if they were the immensely sanctimonious love child of tinnitus and a jackhammer. The pain of a million ripped out nose hairs are but a tender massage compared to this inexpressible ultra torture.
Well, see what I can do. But at least we still have our mighty Grey Knights.
I never created anything called Grey Knights.
But, my lord, they are the greatest of purging demons in the Imperium. They're all psychers, and they come up with the most glorious ways of killing the enemies of man.
Why, at the you.
Oh, greetings, my glorious Emperor. It is an honor.
Oh myself. What the fucking fuck is that stupid
Oh,
thing?
myself.
That is the worst thing that I have ever fucking seen ever. If I still had eyes, I would require someone to deposit promethium-infused floor cleaner into them. What terrible person designed this?
The arcane technology of this marvelous machine was discovered by the Grey Knights and is held secretly from all inferior Astartes chapters. We are Warhammer! The exterior design, I believe, to be personally designed by the Grand Master of the Grey Knights himself, Caldor Draco. He is the mightiest.
Oh, Caldor Draco.
He is currently stuck in the warp, killing demons daily, pillaging demonic villages, and vandalizing the Chaos God's property like some kind of glorious rascal. He has even written a name on a demon Primarch's heart.
For the love of all stop signs in the galaxy, seas, and fucking. What in the fuck? That is actually very cute. Look at its little legs and oversized body. Adorable. Come to Papa you.
What? Wait, no!
Yes. This is funny to me.
Well, I don't know about you, but I feel this is the start of something absolutely glorious.
Shut your face, you fucking banana.
Yes, I will.
Okay, so it's there are a few things I must. Oh my gosh, your laughter makes us great. It makes us so great.
Oh,
So,
what is this?
I'm realizing, as I was watching this, I'm realizing there's a few things we didn't explain to you.
Mhm.
Like what a custodes is.
Yeah, that's true. But I think let's
Once
start
you're
from
done
the beginning.
laughing.
Yeah, let's start from the beginning once he catches his breath, I think.
Oh my god, no, seriously, listening to you laugh makes
I
this
wish you still have
fantastic.
cameras on from before you'd be on the floor with my facial expressions right
Oh, God.
now.
Now you see why we've been looking forward to watching this with you.
Oh my god, the Emperor of Man is the greatest thing ever.
Well,
Oh,
that's
God.
debatable, but
Shut up, you fucking banana.
And that whole rant he did about Robuta Gilliman, oh my god, that was
oh my
pure
goodness,
poetry.
yes. The Ultra Smurfs. It's like a combination of tinnitus and a jackhammer.
What in the
So, your impressions.
Can't teach me now, great ones.
Hmm?
I said teach me, oh great ones.
Okay, so aside from loving the Emperor, what were your first impressions, or did you have any questions?
Okay, well, kind of going back to what you said, what is exactly a custody again?
Oh, okay. So, what a custodes is, you know how a Space Marine or an Astartes is?
Yeah.
Okay. Super soldiers that were, mutated and given augmentations to pretty much be like superhuman. Well, what an Adeptus Custodes is, think that, but a custom-made version, where the Astartes are just general off-the-shelf manufacturing straight from China, and you just print them out by the dozen. A Custodes was handmade by the Emperor himself to be perfect in every single way, to the point that all the way down to their war gear is the best in the Imperium, and they are his personal guard.
Yes, so Astartes, regular Astartes started out as regular humans that were given implantations and modifications to become what they are now. Custodes were put together molecule by molecule by the Emperor.
Well, they started the same way as an Astartes, in a sense, but rather than given the gene seed of the Primarch and all of that, they were specifically crafted to be superior to an Astartes.
Oh, I thought they were like, when you say like handmade by the Emperor, like handmade.
Well, handmade.
Test tube babies.
Handmade in the sense that they are. Now, I'm sure the comments are going to give me all of the corrections in this case, but as far as I recall, what a custodes is essentially a child that is offered up by like the High Lords of whatever planet or whatever, part of the dominion of the Imperium. They are offered up to basically serve the Emperor directly, and they are, from a very young age, crafted so that way all imperfections that would stop them from being a super soldier is basically eliminated. They are crafted in such a special particular way that is unique to them, that if you were to compare an Astartes to a Custodes, it's like comparing a 9th degree black belt to a
Superman.
Yeah, where the Custodes would basically be the Superman in this case. They're not unkillable, but damn be sure you're going to have a hell of a fight to do it.
Or for a more simplistic understanding, kind of taking a stock Nerf blaster and then doing what I do it to it. Go check out my channel, Nerfing Reinhardt Customs.
Yes, that is actually very good. point, to be honest. It's the difference between just a bog standard Nerf gun that you buy off the shelf versus a custom job that you do that's painted up and crafted to be way more of a heavy hitter than what a standard Nerf plunger would actually put out through the nozzle.
Nerfing line.
Yeah, so he is a custodian who's charged. Sorry. After the Emperor, how do I put this? Almost up and died. The custodians became, originally they were like his armored guard, just like during war. They would fight alongside him?
They were his bodyguard and they were his vanguard, essentially. So when the Emperor moves onto the battlefield, he is always there with the custodians.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So they
okay,
are...
now my other question is, he's alive?
Yes.
Kind of.
Sort of.
Okay, because I was going to say, that really didn't look alive.
Yeah.
But that's where that was where my second question was going to be coming, is like, how is this all working again?
Okay, so that goes back to well, first of all, he's extremely powerful. Second of all, he's technically on life support on the Golden Throne. The Golden Throne that he sits on was originally designed to basically be a very, very powerful artifact that resonates the psychic might of whoever sits on it. So in this case, the Emperor, or say Magnus, for example. And they would serve as the Astronomicon to basically allow warp travel to be possible when they're diving into the warp, trying to get from one side of the galaxy to the next using the lighthouse, aka the Astronomicon, as a point of reference to where they need to go. Well, what happened was, after the Horus Heresy and the Emperor was given a mortal wound that was killing him, he was basically... placed upon the Golden Throne and perpetually left on life support, where he cannot leave that Golden Throne, because if he does, he dies. If he stays on it, he's still alive, but he's caught in a quasi hell in a way where he's basically alive and dead at the same time. He's got one foot in the grave, one foot not, and he's experiencing millennia upon millennia upon millennia of just agonizing torture of his death basically being stretched over years.
Okay, again, going to a layman's term thing, that's why I'm understanding this then. The Emperor is basically kind of like Mr. House from Fallout New Vegas.
Yeah, that would be a good way to refer to it. Yeah, I could see that.
Okay.
And essentially, his psychic might is just not even comparable to any other human, like, at all. But because of the fact that he's in a near-death state, he constantly needs a supply of souls to pretty much allow him to continue living. Because as the decades and the centuries and millennia started going forward, he is slowly getting closer and closer to death because for one reason or another, the Golden Throne is failing. And one way to placate that is to sacrifice psychers to fuel his psychic might, so that way the Golden Throne keeps him alive.
Okay, so the Emperor of Mankind is basically excuse me. It's basically Mr. House, Professor Xavier, and Shao Kahn rolled into one.
Yeah. While simultaneously being the Juggernaut prior to being sat upon that Golden Throne. I mean, he's a huge man who could change his size at will.
Yes.
So
I was just going off the whole life support for powers, and that he feeds on souls or needs souls.
Yeah.
There's something we should explain about the custodians as well that I just remembered too.
Which is?
You see how the custodians is really chipper and very cheerful even when he's being insulted. Because of the way the custodians were made, they don't really have emotion.
Yeah, they're basically blank automatons in terms of personality. Their only drive for life is essentially to serve the Emperor, and nothing else matters, to the point that they are borderline robotic with how they operate.
And this was specifically implemented because, the phrase, everyone has their demons?
Yeah.
In Warhammer, that's accurate, because every strong emotion you feel is an entity in the warp, just for you.
Yeah, but I think that's kind of jumping the shark a little.
Yeah, it's just kind of explaining why he's very chipper, and yeah, because he is supposed to be that. Yeah, sorry.
No, it's all good. I mean, it's for the purposes of the show too. You kind of need like a balance between like the asshole and the nice guy, because if you don't, it doesn't really work for comedic purposes. So
that's true.
Yeah.
And the Centurion, he was an Imperial Fist.
And it's funny to see them walking around, especially since the Imperial Fists, they built the palace, and there's a whole thing between like Astartes and Custodes that I recently found out that apparently Custodes don't trust any of the Astartes. So the line,
really,
so the line where this Custodes actually said that the Grey Knights are the greatest of the Astartes, and he's saying that as though he's removed from that. He's not wrong. He is technically removed from the classification of an Astartes. So,
all right,
yeah.
Okay, so who were the Grey Knights? Was that the Imperial Fist?
No, the Imperial Fist was the yellow one, the Centurion.
Oh, the adorable.
That's one of Dorn's boys. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the adorable little one that jumped up onto this dude here. Now, this dude here, he is a Grey Knight, and what he is basically an Astartes chapter, kinda, where basically they are made up entirely of psychers, and they are specifically bred and trained to fight demons, specifically. Their entire thing is to fight the Immaterium. They don't have any other purpose. They do not, technically have any other reason for existing other than to fight the Immaterium as a whole.
Okay.
However, because of their secretive nature, they're also a part of the Inquisition. Well, okay. Let me throw up an asterisk here. They are not a part of the Inquisition, but they are often utilized in conjunction with the Inquisition because of their secretive nature. And
and I'm safely assuming you're going to explain what that is later on, right?
Later on. For the purposes of this episode, the Inquisition doesn't really matter too much. Now, what makes this Astartes chapter important is that they are secret. They have no ties to any of the Primarchs like the other Astartes we've seen. So they are completely unique in comparison. And their entire origin goes down a rabbit hole of like, okay, they came from one source or another. There's time travel involved in one aspect, but for the purposes of what we're discussing, a Grey Knight is effectively just a demon-hunting psyker Astartes that no one in the Imperium outside of the Inquisition and maybe some higher-up echelons, I think, know that they even exist in the first place. And that's why the Custodes was basically saying that they are the greatest of your warriors because technically they are, by definition, the most powerful.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Meanwhile, and
then there's the Centurion.
So Centurion armor is just a kind of Terminator armor. Essentially, that's all that is. And he's from the Imperial Fist, which is the Astartes chapter that was overseen by the Primarch Rogel Dorn, or the Praetorian of Terra.
Oh, I know that name.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Rogel Dorn. All right. So, any other questions besides the insult fest that he gave Killen
that he gives Rebute?
Oh man. Nope. All right. So I guess it's a safe decision to pretty much go to the second episode, huh?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Then let's do just that.
So let me get this straight. It has been 10,000 years since my angsty asshole of a son Boros made me a paraplegic and put on this throne.
That is correct, my lord.
How the fuck did you all survive for 10,000 years without me around?
Well, my lord, the Imperium has safely preserved your teachings and followed it for all these years, always submitting to your superior will.
That's a relief. For a second I thought you guys would have turned into some giant megalomaniacal group of religious people running around killing each other in the name of some fictional deity, or something like that.
Oh no, of course not, my lord. We would never stoop so low. The only one we would ever worship is the one true god of all is you, of course. Everything else is heresy.
Are you fucking serious?
What does that say, you almighty god emperor of mankind?
I knew this would fucking happen.
Oh, my lord, you don't have to worry about anything. The Ecclesiarchy and the Imperial Inquisition both make sure that the people of the Imperium retain their faith in you and you alone by making sure that no one knows about the corrupting powers of chaos. And if they somehow figure it out, we'll just exterminate the planet and it's all safe again.
The Ecclesiarchy? The Inquisition? Are you serious? Damn IT really well searched Okay. Remember the Age of Strife?
Aren't you referring to the Age of Apostasy, sir?
No. The Age of Strife. Let me tell you. It was when asshole psychers first started appearing, and all of asshole mankind started fighting each other over asshole reasons. That is when I first emerged. I destroyed all asshole religions that existed on Terra. Do you want to know why?
Because you are the one true god, my lord.
Wrong. It is because religion is stupid, superstitious, brainwashing crap that makes you into an asshole. This is why I specifically said when designing the Imperial truth that equality, science, and galaxy conquests is the way to go, and religion needs to be thrown out a window.
But my lord, what about the Lectito Divinitatus? Telling us that you are our one true god.
That was written by my whiny bitch of a son Lurgar, who later decided to dress up in spikes, scarlet red armor, worship some dark gods, and be really fucking edgy. Stupid, rebellious teenage phases.
Well, I see, my lord.
Now, where is my Centurion? Yes, this is true happiness. So what is this Age of Apostasy that you mentioned?
Well, how do I put this delicately?
How do I put this delicately? That's
remember
a good
how we
question.
Remember how we just watched Death
Where's
of
my
Hope?
Centurion? This is happiness.
This is happiness. Yeah, so we just saw Death of Hope recently, and you saw what happened with Lorgar and his men and that planet because they were worshipping the Emperor. Now the whole galaxy does.
Yeah, and that's why when he mentioned the Lectitio Divinitatus, that was the book that Lorgar wrote that supposed that the Emperor was a deity, technically, and, it was a philosophical journal. That's all it was. But then some jackass cult basically found that book, took it too seriously, took it to the Imperium over the many millennia, and infected the entire Imperium with this giant religion, essentially.
Yep.
And that's why the Emperor is pissed off, because he said it himself, religion needs to be thrown out of the window, because religion is just a way to indoctrinate people and turn them into psychopaths, essentially. Or at least that's what his view was. Not really understanding that technically he kind of went down that trail no matter how you look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, although in his defense, it is also a way that people justify killing others, which leads us to the Inquisition.
Yeah, or just the religiosity that he pretty much says. The difference between the imperial truth that he posed out versus what came of the Imperium once he was out of the picture. Yep. It was just a short and simple one that pretty much just covered that.
Yep.
Now, I do have to point out in this, and I do have notes on this, that the Age of Strife that he mentioned, where he said that when he first emerged, when Psychers were first a thing. So just to explain the timeline a little bit, what that basically means is that at one point, the Emperor himself was just not in the picture. He did not come forward for any reason. He was just off doing his own thing. Humanity had evolved to a point where faster than light travel was achieved. They started going to different planets to colonize them, and they pretty much started, creating the golden age of man. Then when the warp storms first happened, well, the warp storms or the Psychers? No, the Psychers happened, then the warp storms happened. When Psychers first showed up and they started realizing, hey, we got psychic powers, this is some really cool shit.
Hey, magic is cool.
Yeah, some of them were kind of abusive to, well, what their powers was, and it just led to a whole breakdown in human society to the point that everything just went to crap. Then couple that with a bunch of warp storms that cut off a lot of the colonies from Earth and everything like that, it just made things worse, leading to years upon years of just absolute destruction. It would be no different than if the United States were no longer the United States, and New York is basically all that's left onto itself because everything else is just covered in storms that you can't travel through.
Okay.
Yeah. So then what happened was the Emperor basically took it upon himself to come out of hiding, stop doing what his own thing was, and he went to war, took over the Earth, and then started to conquer all the planets in the system to reclaim all of humanity that has been spread throughout the stars and reunify them under one banner, which was the Imperium of Man, leading to him to create the Imperial Truth and to establish the Imperium as he saw fit.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's why he was referring to the Age of Strife, because it was a time where basically humans were just at their worst. Well, equivalent to what it is now. And yeah, and the Lectitio Divinitatis is the Ecclesiarchy's Bible, which was penned by Lorgar. Yeah, which he already pointed out.
Yep.
Alright, so that covers episode 2. I think we're safe to go into episode 3 unless you got any other curiosities, James.
Oh, no, I'm keeping up on everything so far.
That's good, that's good. Okay.
That's one thing I do like about TTS, is it's fed to you in a very...
piecemeal way.
Yes, and it's very... So, because when I started, I had no idea about anything. And then it just explained a lot of stuff as it went along.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because a lot of the details I even go into right here, it's stuff that you'll hear them actually address more on later down the line when it applies to it. But, you know.
Yeah.
Alright, so let's start episode 3.
Really?
Yes, my lord.
This happened?
On behalf of all mankind, I'm really sorry, my lord. I truly am really sorry.
Let one of those nutty cults gain a hold of mankind and grow to become a state religion of the Imperium, becoming this fucking ecclesiarchy thing. And then people start to cut their own fucking spleen out, waving it around and throwing it at people, all in a pool of their own jizz and blood, to profess their love for me.
I'm really sorry.
And then you let some power-hungry motherfucking bureaucrat become the master of both the administratum and that overly dominant ecclesiarchy grok shit, effectively controlling all our hot, leathery assassins from the Officio Assassinorum, all asshole sinkers in the Adeptus Astra Telepathica. Oh, and our flashlight guys as well. And finish this balls-to-the-walls paramount of imperial incompetence that has become your leader starts to kill and torture anyone and everyone he feels like because it makes his bureaucrat balls tingle with delight, initiating a massive, totally pointless purge of all mankind. And in addition, he did all this with the most evil fucking name I've ever heard. Goat Van Dyer. Seriously, how could you ever trust a guy with that name? G-O-G-E Van Dyer. That name is just screaming I'm gonna take your eyes sockets and put my penis into them.
Look, my lord. The events of the Age of Apostasy is all a great shame upon the Imperium, but he was brought to justice in the end. Why, I was even there when it happened.
A century later.
Several of Astartes chapter masters, the Mechanicus Fabricator General, came around and told us what Van Dyer had been up to all this time. And then we helped out by conveying the truth of the matter to the leader of Van Dyer's bodyguards, the Brides of the Emperor, by directing her straight to you. Why, I remember it all like it was yesterday.
Oh, the sacred
5,000 years ago.
himself, upon the golden throne of Terra. He is so beautiful. I've never seen anything as graceful and bewitching in all my life.
I know, right? And we get to clean his entire body several times a week.
I'm so unfathomably jealous I could burn you all right now. But I won't, so don't worry. But still...
Right. Anyway, as you can see, Van Dyer's not the one you're supposed to be looking up to. He doesn't do anything but deceive to gain more power. He is a madman, and his reign of blood must be stopped. you even listening?
Huh? Oh, I'm sorry, I spaced out. The Emperor has some quite divine-looking abs.
Actually, those are just bones jutting out. But anyway, I know you've observed Van Dyer for a long time, but his megalomaniacal ways must come to an end.
Oh. Okay. You have committed the ultimate heresy! Not only have you turned your back on the Emperor and stepped from his light, you have profaned his name and almost destroyed everything he has striven to build. You have perverted and twisted the path he has laid for mankind to tread. As your own decrees have stated, there can be no mercy for such a criminal. I renounce your lordship. You walk in the darkness and cannot be allowed to live. Your sentence has been long overdue, and now it is time for you to die.
I don't have time to die. I'm too busy.
Right. I think I remember that too. Some girl came in here and stared at me with depraved, flustered eyes. If I had the proper bodily components left, I would probably have gotten a fairly insecure boner.
That's the Adeptus Sororitas for you.
You haven't made female space marines, have you?
Huh? Oh, no, that isn't even possible. Only lewd and deviant artists of pen and parchment ever come up with something like that. Even then, if we didn't catch one of them in the middle of the process, we end up throwing them into the fire.
Good. The Adeptus Astartes can only contain males. No girls allowed. They are yucky.
Whatever you say, my lord.
So, what's up with this Inquisition thing?
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Oh man, this show is just funny as hell.
It's wonderful.
Ah, yeah, such divine abs. Actually, those are just bones.
That's
jutting
just
out.
bones jutting out. Anyway. Oh gosh.
Okay, so James, what did you think of that one?
Okay, that one at least explained what was going on a little bit more. So
Mhm.
I don't have anything off the top of my head that I can think of right now to ask a question. I may have to rewatch it and revisit it or something, but
Okay. Well, I am just going to touch on one thing that was mentioned because of the age of apostasy was so big in this case. Remember how we said that the Horus Heresy was essentially the civil war of the Imperium?
right?
The Age of Apostasy was the next biggest thing to happen to the Imperium, where basically for an entire century, a mad, crazy bureaucrat by the name of Gog Van Dyer basically assumed lordship over Terra and the Administratum, and he basically had control over the ecclesiarchy through puppet means, then eventually, taking direct control after that. When the Mechanicus, some Astartes, and I think the Inquisition, brought all that information to the Custodes to pretty much try to intervene, because no one else really had the power to do it without getting assassinated by this guy who's been in power for over a century, just doing all kinds of horrendous things, during his reign of terror, essentially being like Emperor Nero in a sense. The Custodes convinced his bodyguard, which were a retinue of women called the Daughters of the Emperor, or the Brides of the Emperor. And
Brits.
yeah, and they turned on Gog Van Dyer, then everything started to pretty much go the way of a second wave of reformations. But that was also the birth of the Adeptus Sororitas. That was the moment where the bodyguard of Gog Van Dyer evolved into the all-female militant arm of the ecclesiarchy, or as you may have heard certain Warhammer 40k fans refer to them, the nuns with guns.
Yeah.
So that lady that was there staring at our wonderful emperor with depraved flustered eyes, yeah, she was one of the first.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that's about it. Then there was a second wave of reformations called the Plague of Unbelief. But that was when basically they were going throughout the Imperium to cleanse of all false prophets and establish the ecclesiarchy as the permanent only religion. There is no other head, and stop all rebellions that were caused because the ecclesiarchy was ruled by a puppet. That kind of thing.
Because anything else is chaos. Or not chaos, heresy.
Both are the same thing. You just can't say the C word. Because then you get doubly murdered, if that were possible.
That's true. Your planet gets exterminatus.
Yeah. Which, by the way, James, is essentially they nuke the planet until nothing can live on it.
If you're curious, I can go more into depth about what it is.
Basically they glass it.
That'd be another
Kind of,
good
yeah.
way. Yeah, that's another way
Yeah.
they can do it. Then they can
'Cause it's,
also
if I remember
virus
correct,
bomb it.
yeah.
Sorry, I stole your thunder, Chelsea. I kind of knew what exterminatus meant.
Shut up! Honestly, it's a really interesting way to completely demolish a thing, because it's a two-wave system. But
I don't know whether to
Yeah.
be impressed or concerned that you actually look more into this. Like
I
you
didn't.
were
No,
genuinely
it's part of. No, it's part of the book,
Okay.
and they explain what it does, and it's rather cool.
Okay. All right. I ain't gonna press that. Okay, so that covers that. I guess we're ready for episode 4.
Yay!
Actually, I think I have to go now.
Stop. You were telling me about this Inquisition thing.
Oh, hold it. Wow. I think that's your regular everyday meal of 1,000 sacrificed souls being prepared. Better go and check on it.
What was that?
Nothing, my lord. Nothing at all. I'll just go now. What the...
You are not going anywhere until you tell me about the Inquisition.
How did you do that?
Have you forgotten? I'm the fucking Emperor. I sit around and randomly shit out warp storms daily because I have nothing better to do. Now, tell me.
He sinks down.
Why are there so many
I think I shat out at least 5 warp storms during that presentation. Really, what the fuck have you all become? Labor camps and sterilizations? Murder millions over bare superstition? Excommunication of actually loyal Astartes? Have thousands of Imperial planets and its valuable assets destroyed because some bypassed with barbed wire and accidentally summoned a demon or two. Be painfully hypocritical and use Xenos and demonic weaponry in order to carry across my will? Use technomonkeys?
But, my lords, the Inquisition's work has saved mankind on numerous occasions. Like during the High Fleet Leviathan crisis, where the Inquisitor known as Cryptman stepped forward. The Tyranids, which he had previously named them, had managed to outmaneuver the Imperium, but thanks to Cryptman, their threat was abolished. He had managed to have a Magos concoct a poison against the Tyranids, which they then managed to defeat them entirely with.
Am I gonna have to start writing a list over things I don't know what the fuck you are talking about because what in the balls are a Tyrannid?
Right. It's kind of nasty. But still, it was quite heroic of it.
And how much did this threat cost to abolish?
Well, let's just say he didn't have the luxury to count the cost. Anyway, there was also one time during the First War of Armageddon where the Grey Knights helped the Space Wolves fight off a demon Primarch. Please don't get oversensitive about the Primarch thing. I really don't need more of this.
Now you're bringing up those fucking Grey Knights again, with that stupid-ass baby carrier Dread Knight thing. My inexistent eyes are still sore from seeing that abomination.
Yes, but truly the Space Wolves received great aid from the Grey Knights in their battle.
And then what?
What do you mean?
What happened after the battle had ended?
Well... The Space Wolves kind of wanted to save the survivors of the war, but the Inquisition sort of wanted to put them into labor camps and sterilize them and have them die off, which the... Space Wolves didn't really like that much, so, Well, there was a Cold War, and the Grey Knights betrayed the Space Wolves, and some shit happened, but that isn't important. Because, well, one time the Grey Knights stopped a bloodthirst using an ancient, very dangerous technology known as the Blood Tide from destroying a world, and it was truly glorious.
And then what?
Oh shit, they killed a massive amount of innocent sisters in battle and adorned their armor in their blood.
Just fucking stop. The organization, however it came to fucking be, was obviously pure, concentrated, whole-brain stupidity, and whoever came up with the idea to create it in the first place is obviously a fucking idiot. They walk around and do whatever they fucking feel like while laughing really snarky at the plebeian communities they see before them, all while having themselves and all their troops ornate in loads of fucking shiny shit and skulls to look so emperor worshipping when really they are just creeps in trench coats, and that is all they will ever be. Now, ready yourself, send this message to the scribes. I want it sent to every corner of the fucking galaxy. I, the Emperor of Mankind, hereby make my official decree that all organizations contained within the holy orders of the Emperor's Inquisition and the Adeptus Ministorum shall be disbanded and removed from existence. All who work for either organization shall return to their sector of birth and work there as a regular citizen once more. All who refuse shall be branded renegades until they have given up their futile strive to conquer the galaxy in the name of their dogmatic religion. Signed, the Emperor of Mankind.
Yes! I shall go ahead and do that immediately, my lord. I'll be back when I'm finished.
This is all fucking nuts. Seriously, how could an organization like this spring into Exista? Wait a moment, I remember something. Shit fuck. This can't be for real. Malcador.
Lord Inquisitor Fyodor Karras.
What is it? Do not waste my time. I'm very busy initiating exterminatus on this mining world, but not giving me the shiny shit we need. Seriously, we can't have our soldiers walking around without the blame.
A very important message has been sent to you directly from Holy Terror itself.
What is it about?
Here, read it.
What? This is heresy!
And that's just about the kind of response you can expect from an Inquisition.
Yeah, pretty much. So, James, any questions?
The Grey Knights betrayed the Space Wolves and some shit, huh?
Okay, so let me get on to that first and foremost.
Okay, come on, Space Wolf.
Okay. So there was this War of Armageddon. Essentially, Armageddon Prime, which was a planet somewhere off in the galaxy, somewhere within the space-time of, like, the northern section of Segmentum Solar. Who cares? What happened was a demon incursion came about when a Space Hulk, which is a jumble of ships that get lost in the warp, gets vomited out of the warp into the Materium, was completely packed full of demons and basically launched an attack on the planet of Armageddon. The ones who answered the call to war were essentially the Astra Militarum, the Space Wolves, and eventually the Inquisition came in along with the Order of Grey Knights because they're specialized in dealing with demons. Okay, that's all well and good. What they also had to deal with was Angron was there. Angron, one of the demon primarchs of the World Eaters.
I was wondering which one that would be.
And then what ended up happening was the war kept on going, and then eventually the Grey Knights came in, teleported in the midst of all these demons. I think it was a total of, like, I don't know, 20 or so. I don't remember the exact number. But they came in. Angron killed, like, a few of them in literally just one swing of his axe. They were pretty much on the ropes, and it took many Grey Knights to actually banish Angron out of existence. And once they managed to do that, he was essentially ejected back into the warp, never to come to the Imperium, into the Materium for 100 or so years. Okay. Then they had to go through the process of killing off the demons that were there. Okay, cool. Well, what happened was the Inquisition, once they pretty much saw that the planet knew what chaos was, knew what the demons were, and they started learning what these things were, they were too dangerous to let loose upon to the Greater Imperium, who are not supposed to know that demons exist. So that's when the sterilizations and the labor camps went into play. Space Wolves, they didn't take kindly to that. They literally looked at that form of action as the biggest load of bullcrap because that is killing off people who fought beside you.
Yeah.
So what they ended up doing was trying to evacuate citizens off-world to avoid that fate, and then the Inquisition basically started bombarding the barges full of innocent people trying to leave. The Space Wolves then basically used their own ships as, bodyguards, essentially taking the shots for those transport ships to pretty much just fly off somewhere else into the universe. And the Space Wolves took a huge beating for this, but they did not fight back. Well, what happened was, after they escorted them to certain worlds, some Inquisitors found out, looks like a transport of all these people from this one planet arrived on this planet, so let's exterminate this planet just to make sure that we get them all in one go. Space Wolves didn't like that, so then the Cold War basically continued, where the Space Wolves will just protest in their own way and get in the way of the Inquisition. Then things got a little out of hand when basically the Inquisitor that started all this and the leader of the Grey Knights basically came together and said, okay, we have to talk to the Space Wolves leadership, let's meet in neutral space, come to an agreement. Logan Grimnar, the Lord of the Space Wolves, agreed to do so. As soon as he and his ship and 4 other ships came into real space, they were attacked by the Inquisition. No quarter, no nothing, they were just attacked then and there, essentially trying to cut the Space Wolves' head off to basically get rid of their leadership entirely. Logan Grimnar basically did not take kindly to that, transported himself along with a unit of Terminator armored-clad Space Wolves and started wrecking the shit out of the Inquisition ship, forcing the Inquisitor to permit Logan Grimnar to escape. He did this, and from then on, the Space Wolves basically declared, we're going to go to active war against the Inquisition and Grey Knights for supporting them. Then what happened was the Inquisition turned around and said, okay, we're going to get together and we're going to gather some Space Marine forces. We're going to get the Grey Knights again, and we're going to hold Fenris, the homeworld, hostage. Because that's going to go well. They show up. Most of the fleet is basically gone somewhere else at this point. There was only a battle barge, which basically gets attacked. And the leader that was left behind was Bjorn the Fell-Handed. He's important down the line if you follow the Space Wolf story. But he's basically just talking it up with the Inquisition, trying to placate them, try to stretch out for time. And the Inquisition, when they finally realize that they're not going to get the Space Wolves to actually bend the knee and do what the Inquisition wants, by that point it was already too late, because Logan Grimnar with the rest of his flotilla basically came in and said, kill them all. They go into a full-on space battle. Ships are crashing into the planet of Fenris. People are dying left and right. And then eventually Logan Grimnar, along with another unit, came in, did the exact same thing, killed the Inquisitor and killed the leader of the Grey Knights, and only stopped when Bjorn, the one on Fenris that was negotiating at that point, calmed him down to realize that if this fight continues, the Space Wolves, the Inquisition, and the Grey Knights will cease to exist. So Logan Grimnar stopped because he had already killed the leadership that was responsible for all this bullcrap in the first place. But by that point, the Space Wolves pretty much disdain anything to do with the Inquisition, and they hate the Grey Knights in their entirety. And the Grey Knights hate the Space Wolves in turn because the Space Wolves forced a casualty count that they themselves could not afford to take after dealing with Angron and his demons at the Battle of Armageddon. So now all 3 factions just absolutely hate each other, and the Administratum on Earth pretty much view the Space Wolves with absolute disdain, calling them just a band of war dogs, essentially, that will not do anything that the Imperium tells them to do. And the Space Wolves are just like, hey, we're loyal, but you guys are assholes, so fuck off.
They learned their lesson.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to go on that rant because I was like...
Because you went on a serious rant there.
Yeah.
I figured it had something to do with the Space Wolves, so I would get the best information from you off of that, so...
Yeah, you poked the right rib at this point to get that type of response. So yeah, the Inquisition and the Grey Knights are just absolute trash in the eyes of the Space Wolves and vice versa. No one in the Administratum and the Inquisition looks at Space Wolves positively because of this whole Cold War that came about and the fact that they willingly violate the Inquisition's mandate during that time. They don't expect them to ever come to heel ever again. At this point, I think the sentiment is pretty much, we will obey the Emperor and Russ. Beyond that, everyone else is a pretender.
So come to heel.
Yeah, that is actually a term that they say with regards to the Space Wolves, and yes, I do find it offensive. So yeah, what else were your thoughts on that?
I'm really enjoying TTS.
Oh yeah, it's really, really good stuff. Oh, and
it's very enjoyable.
Fun fact, and I think it's worth showing you because it is definitely hilarious after I found out. The fact that the Emperor actually makes mention of the techno monkeys. Hold on, I have to find it. Hold on. Here we go. Use techno monkeys? What he's referring to?
God, this is a real thing. That's not him just being a wise ass.
I thought he was, but apparently he's not.
What?
These things.
Oh my fucking god.
My gosh.
They are...
Wait! Hold on! James, can you plug your ears? Wait, do these make an appearance later on?
Banana! Yep.
So, oh my gosh, I thought that was just some weird freaking... Oh dear, that makes sense now.
I thought the exact same thing, but apparently they're... James, you can unplug your ears. Apparently they are an entire Xenos race of basically alien monkeys that don't talk. They just are very much technically inclined, and apparently there's an order of the Inquisition that use them. I think the Order Xenos make use of these guys in their service and retinue. Just the fact...
Inquisitor Cortez!
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. This is why, this is one reason I love TTS. I've seen it a couple times through, up to where it is at the moment. But every time I rewatch it, there's something else I find out, and I'm like, wait a second, oh, I know what that is now. I understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm. And it adds so much more to the hilarity.
It does. It really does. I love it so much.
Yeah, and this is something that I just felt compelled to share because it's me rediscovering something new into TTS, and I glossed over the first time around. This is funny as hell to me.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh.
So yeah, that was episode 4 of the Emperor's Texas speech device. I think that this is pretty much a decent stopping point, unless you want to go another one.
I think this was a good first round of it.
All right. Then I guess that's where we're going to call it for now, guys. Well, leave any comments in the comment section below. If there are any corrections that we may have missed, more little tidbits of lore that we definitely need expansion on and would definitely like to hear. And feel free to leave a like and a subscribe as well, so that way when we continue the TTS, you can see it as we react along with it. Until then, everyone, thank you again for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful one from here.